Hello and welcome. This is Diana and you are watching Holistic Vibes. This is a generalized reading. And really what's kind of been coming up in meditation and like reflection is like the homage of the journey, the homage of the like what you've been learning, the how you've been expanding. And it's kind of like the identification of the underplay of how you it's like gassing yourself up, but it's like really truly like being in a state of gratitude for the evolution that's taken place up to this point, right? And it's not to say you're not going to go backwards, because that would be an omission of like the journey you've been on, right? And the ego is always going to have a place in your consciousness, in your journey, right? Like your ego essentially helped you get to this point. And so even with the removal or the peeling off, the exposing to, like however you delineate like your relationship with your ego side, it's kind of like at this point, stepping into a new, it's almost like a new reality, a new portal, a new doorway, a new gateway. It's kind of like once you firmly decide that like your old program is actually not who you are today, those old, they're just saying like it's like a definition. It's like something that was already preordained for you, that you took on as an aspect of your own personality, right? And so like when you reflect and relook at like, does this serve you? Does this behavior amplify your emotional growth, like your EQ? And so if it does not, then you have to ask yourself, like, why are these behaviors, thought forms, aspects of self still active in your current reality, right? And like, so you have to kind of fragment it, or you have to identify it separately so that you can truly figure out like what in your reality is causing this old to resurface when you've done they're saying it's like an educational background. Like when you've done the self-introspection and you've truly identified and averted a majority of the trigger points when they still arise within self, like you have to ask yourself, what is the awareness that I need to see to it's like overextending like your knowledge of awareness. It's kind of like you have to go above and beyond to actually overcome it. It's with more clarity, with more understanding, with a heightened state of awareness, like through the contemplation of your own expansion, you kind of come into your own. I don't know. I feel like I just talked in a circle, but they're just saying like there's ways for you to overcome this particular aspect. And what they're saying is the way that you've been raised, it's kind of re-amplifying like a fake personality. But in actuality, it's just an aspect of you that no longer resonates with your current reality, right? Like you want to attract more of what your heart truly desires, whether or not that's a cohesive, heart-centered consciousness. But then you also have to exemplify, you have to amplify that out into your field, right? Like you have to be more of that which you seek. And I don't know why, but they're bringing up like the journey of the alchemist. And that was a gift from a would-be husband. But it was honestly like one of the best books that I've read that brought me to a state of tears, because it's the understanding that like whatever you truly desire has always been right underneath your feet, right? It's always been right where you started is where you end. And so like the contemplation through this growth phase is kind of like a paying homage to like you've always been exactly where you need to be. And it's like this aha in the realization of the journey, right? The journey back to self. I don't know. Yeah, so it's that whole, oi. They just said it's like this whole, like, the minute that you realize that you are not bound, right? That you hold the vibration of freedom, you hold the vibration of, like, controlling your own reality. Like, once you truly reflect and understand that those people with those issues, those people with the behaviors that are kind of trying to keep you stuck into your reality, into a state of, like, poverty, unemployment, like in lack, having hardship, struggle, constantly in a state of loss, right? Feeling like you don't have the support you need. They're just saying, like visualize all of these aspects of your journey up to this point. And my question to you is, have you learned all of these lessons? Do you need to spend another 20 years repeating these cycles? Because, like, the thing is the energetic frequency of the movement of the collective is, like, in your favor, because you're watching this. So that means that you've done some work, that you've done some awareness. And so, like, the question to you is, like, how much more loss do you need to sit in before you actually start executing on what God's placed on your heart? Because we can no longer be sideline watchers, right? You have enough awareness of what the truth is in the collective. And so how are you going to speak up and help lead the rest, or bring them into a state of enlightenment, so that we are no longer just a bunch of followers, right? When are we going to step up into that state where you are then realizing that you are creating your own vibrational pool? You're like your own magnet. And so what do you want more of in this lifetime? And, like, how are you going to choose every single day to show up for yourself, and then output and show up for somebody else, right? Because we can all go through a state of depression, or woe is me, or uncertainty, right? That vibration of fear. And it's like, through you figuring out what are the little things that bring you joy. And it doesn't have to be like this crazy big shit. Like, it doesn't have to be everything under the sun. Like, what is one little thing that absolutely you can get yourself lost in for hours? If it's coloring, then go pick up a crayons and a coloring book, right? If it's woodworking, then go grab a fucking branch. Like, do what you need to do, like, to get off your ass and to get moving. And I say that in, like, divine love, right? Because it's like, you cannot live in regret anymore. You cannot live in the woulda, coulda, shouldas. The energy is potent. It's time for you to truly shift your vibration. And those anchors that have been keeping you stuck in that old loop, identify them on your body and pull that out. Shift your body, shift your frequency. You have the ability to update the program that you're operating out of. Download a new blueprint with some self-conscious awareness, with a little bit of peace, love for self. It omits out of you to others, right? You're going to find yourself just being kind to people from randomly. And you're not going to understand, like, where that comes from, right? Because maybe you've walked around with a chip on your shoulder, or maybe you've been defensive, or maybe you were outcasted as a kid, and that's translated into the isolation of the adultism, right? Like, you have to pick wherever it lies for you. But, like, it's time to start challenging your beliefs of old and identify where you're still looping and where you're still holding on to your old stuff. And it's time for you to, like, get to that next state of freedom. It's really, it's how you're going to be birthing this next cycle. So because I'm nosy, and this is usually the you can't see card, this is my go to dig a little deeper. So let me just see what I can get a hold of. So this is when you meet a soulmate, when you meet somebody that you have a lot of lifetime ties to, right? The veil's super thin, so you may see that in the auric field. You may see that in the way that you read. You may see that in the way that you interact with people. I mean, I'll never forget a time where I literally got my first nod from somebody that said, hey, I'm not going to be on this planet much longer. And it was such a clear message, and it was a clear transmission. And it was just like you could feel the tiredness of being on the planet, right? Just not happy with the body, not happy with the lot in life. Just, it was a complete separation from like the actual journey. And somebody could be going through that, right? Like somebody could have had this death and rebirth cycle, and that could be what it had felt like. It felt like a section or a portion of you was fully like pulled out of the process, right? Fully withdrawn from like your way of being. It's kind of like, for those of you that have been baptized, right? Like when you come out of the water, there's like this calmness and this peace that like kind of rests over you, right? And it's kind of like when you go on a journey back to self, like when you step away from your reality and you just kind of like allow it to release. It's like the escapism and the illusions of wow, that's wild. So they just said it's kind of like when you go back to like when you're surrounded by tons of people, right? Like the void is filled. And then at the end of the night, you still have to go to an empty hotel room. And so it's like truly understanding the aspects of self that have to dissipate for you to step into your happiness, right? Because in the world, you're not actually meant to do the world alone, and you're not meant to do the world in a state of fight or flight continuously, right? So like at what point are you going to open up and allow like divine connection to come into play? And it's that whole understanding of the hardships, the whys, the how comes. It's, are you on the up of the wheel or are you on the down of the wheel? And depending on the response that you're taking in your current reality, it's essentially, thanks. You guys are too much. It's literally opening up to divine intervention, right? And so like through this activation of like your spark, of your intellect, of like your true divine pathway, it's like once you are releasing these anchors, and I'm seeing like 4 to 6, you have to like identify that, right? It's your old money beliefs essentially, and what your family taught you, and where you can actually see through a mentor or through like another's projection or what they're doing, right? Good, bad, and different. Like, again, you have to use your own discernment on the mentors you seek and whether or not that's out the vibration of love, or if it's out the vibration because it's ahead of the pact, or because they're essentially, it's a false facade, right? Like that's something you have to figure out with you. But your job is to be youthful through the process, right? Some people you're going to resonate with like for a couple of months, you're going to be done with it, and then you are going to move on to another energy source, another point of selection where you then get some more information, right? And through this death and rebirthing process, through the inner guidance within, like connecting in with your own discernment, with your own space. And it's hard because remember, a lot of us have had our discernment impeded. And so it's like, as you're gaining back your confidence, as you're gaining back your own divine truth, right? Your connection to the Holy Spirit, higher self, like that is going to bring in this honesty and integrity vibration that is gonna get rid of all of the regret and all of the coulda, woulda, shouldas and procrastination of dragging the feet. It's kind of like through the clarity of the explosion of like whatever's taken place, through the backstabbing, through the sorrow, through the impediment, through the self-deprecation, through the people-pleasing, like all of these different facets are essentially all clearing up. And it's you, it's circumstantial. And each person is going to experiencing the loss of financial or what finances mean to you. And so as you're birthing this new cycle, step into the nurturing of self. And like, if you were the kindest, most engaging human being, like how would you engage with a child? How would you engage with somebody new? How would you engage with somebody who is in the elder states of life, right? Like you should be consistent across the board. Like if you are operating out of a state of kindness, generosity, and helpfulness, like regardless, that's really like the next, they're just saying it's the next law that you need to be exploring is, I think it's a mirroring law or a law of reciprocity or something like this. But you got to use your imagination in this next phase, even more so, because it's gonna bring you that luck that you're looking for. It's not luck, it's alignment, right? And luck is alignment. So you dive into that. Dive into the exploration of that. Something to do with Mercury. There's going to be they just said some kind of proposal, like right before Mercury goes retrograde, or whatever Mercury's doing right now in your houses. I don't know. But there's taking action that's coming. So I'm going to leave this there. If something in this resonates with you, please give it a thumbs up. I'm actually going to get one more card, I think. Says abundance affirmation. Large sums of money flow to me easily and freely. I now accept the overflow of my increase that is pouring into my life. I am connected to the divine source so that there is never lack. I mean, I don't know. That's what you need to tell yourself every single day, because if you wake up in the impact of like, I am going to help somebody heal today, and I'm going to be They just said somebody saying I'm going to do that and I'm going to be spiritual. I don't know. Astrologer. Yeah, somebody had dealings with an astrologer or had their chart read from that kind of laid out like exactly who they are, what they were. And maybe there was a manipulation of circumstances or utilizing insight beyond the consciousness, not even realizing, wow, how did I end up here? Right? But understanding that there's always luck and alignment, and nothing happens by accident. It's like every single thing is aligned for you to end up in the right place at the right time with the right people, right? So I am going to leave that there. If anything else happens to resonate with you, please let me know. Hopefully you like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you would like a reading or a healing, I have both open, and Calendly is available. All the information is below. Until next time, be well. Ciao.